Greetings, Poe fans. Welcome to another edition of Poe Unplugged. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith, and we are
The Potastic Two.
Come zoom with us into the Unbook Club dedicated to the works of Mr. Edgar Allan Poe.
Good evening, and welcome back to Poe Unplugged, where we will be discussing what story, Jeanie?
Man in the Crowd.
Yes.
Right? That's the one? Yeah, okay.
Yes, the man of the crowd.
Man of the Crowd, not
Man
of
of the crowd, because if you do it
Yes.
the other way, it changes the whole concept
It
of
does. It does.
Well,
See,
those
that's not the
pesky
woman of
prepositions.
the crowd.
Preposition, right.
Yes.
The pesky preposition in,
Yes.
of, over, under, around. Could be the man around the crowd.
Oh,
Because
my word.
according to the story, he just kept going around. Okay, go ahead.
True. I'm definitely anxious to hear everybody's take on this. And Cheryl, thank you for sharing the article. That
Mhm.
was really insightful. And I started kind of going into a little bit of a rabbit hole of some other things too, just my thoughts on it. And so, but who would like to start out the discussion tonight?
Well, I can tell you that I kind of, when I read it, I went back and read it again. Then I started thinking, then I started jotting notes down, and then kind of, I guess I went into a rabbit hole too, because I spent most of my time with this story, even though I know when it was written. I thought, well, this is ahead of its time. He's doing that thing again. Because, I'm following all these videos right now that's fascinating me about this. So anyway, I thought, well, this is kind of like modern times. It's us. But it's from what I figured out in my mind was with the way he was classifying everybody in London, because he thought he was superior enough to put everybody in a classification.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like society telling everybody where you belong based on whatever about you, which is not right. But I kind of compared it to like, to him, it was the story came across like, oh my God, here's this man. He's in the city, and he has to be around these people to be recognized or to be something, because I don't think he could really handle being alone. Me, on the other hand, I like being alone, and I could give a flip about the city half the time when I'm out there. I do my thing, come home with a book, and I'm okay. But I kind of got it. It's kind of like that isolation thing that goes on, and the kind of like COVID, I tied that into it. But it's the digital age that brought me back to it, what we're going through now. Digitally, technology is what, to me, is creating this problem of all of us being around each other but not really seeing each other or functioning, because we're so busy functioning with machines now. Either they're on our phone, our laptop, they're all over the place.
That's a really
Except Jeannie, because
interesting
she's
way
having
to think
trouble with her
about it.
phone.
It just popped in my head. I mean, I finished reading, I was doing something else, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, and I came back and wrote it down.
That's a really good point, because like talking too about isolation from COVID, that also like had like one thing that's referenced with that is also Mask of the Red Death, with the
Mhm.
whole like, predicting COVID or some type of disease. And so that Keith, I like that idea. That's interesting.
Yeah, and to play
I get
off
a
what
good one
Keith,
once in a while.
yeah, to play off what you're saying, Keith, I kind of thought that too. Like, he's not really able to like live in the moment, right? He's really not able like to connect. So to be honest, I've read. It's been a long time since I read this, and I kept saying in the crowd. So, but anyway, so it's been a long time since I remembered very little. I only really remembered the dagger thing. So when I was reading it this time, I was trying to figure it out. So it was like first time real, basically. And I kept thinking, like, who is this old man? Like, is he chasing? I thought he was actually chasing death. But then when it ends, I was like, is this actually kind of like almost like a I guess the word's a metaphor? Like, was he looking for happiness? So to me, at the end, I think, and he just kind of gave up on it, right? He's just not able to connect. The old man, he was essentially like seeing almost like a version of himself, and like the dagger kept underneath him is like basically like the El Dorado, like this like holy grail that he's keeping inside under cover that he can never get to, and he's straight trying to like he was no better off. He was just exactly where he was left. He was deflated. Like he was never able to really, like I said, crack the egg, find that happiness. So I kept trying to think like if like, what did the old man symbolize, right? Because obviously he has to symbolize something. He's more than just some creepy old man that's like hobbling around, going through the same patterns, going like kind of just walking through the crowd, doing his thing. He has to symbolize something. So I don't know if you guys thought he symbolized something to you or whatnot.
No. You really want to hear it? You
Yeah.
really want? You
Yeah.
want me to
I
go? Okay.
Go.
Because we know that my brain apparently doesn't work in this planet for any reason whatsoever. It's always off into the wide blue yonder in another galaxy. I don't know why. But here, here, the old man in the crowd is Sigmund Freud. Because all I got through all of this was all about the id, the ego, and the superego. And and also going with the witches, the maiden, the old crone, and what's the other one? I can't remember. Anyway, because that's everything that I was seeing. Because when he's sitting there and just watching all the people, he's describing all the different types in the crowd. So he is talking about the archetypes. So he in itself is describing the ids and the egos and the places that you're going. And then he sees one that he recognizes as an old man. Like to me, it's like I see myself. This is what I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to strive to be. And so he starts following him. He's like, I recognize him. I want to find, what is he going to do? And then he just keeps following him. And then he just keeps going in circles. And he goes through all these different steps. And he talks to people and he looks at things, but he never finds anything or he never buys anything. And then he just kept in this circular pattern. And then all of a sudden, at the very end, he's right back where he started from. And anything that we do, it's like when we talk about from birth to death, some of the steps we take are circular because we may have started on one path and then all of a sudden we veered off into another path, but then we come back to something. Like something happens. Like I'm gonna talk from experience. It's like things when I try things and I fail. I always go back to my security blanket. I go back to where I felt the safest and I start over again. So, and it's like I was always searching all through life. I've always been searching for something. The crowd has dictated a lot of places that I've gone. A lot of people have dictated a lot of the choices that I've made. So what he's observing all these people in the crowd, and he sees that some of the choices, like the dandies and the ladies of the night and all those, and he sees where they want to be something else, but they're trying to portray it, but they can't escape it, because they want to project who they really want to be, but they can't escape the choices they make.
Yeah.
So that's, and once more, like I said, it may have had a little bit of influence of, my own feelings of today when I was, because I started reading it yesterday and then I was reading it today and then in between what was going on, I was reading it. So it just pictures to me because Keith, like you, um, I've never been a person that likes people. I hate to break it to you, people. I'm just not.
I already
I can,
knew.
I can interact with people. I get along with a lot of people. I mean, I was a teacher for Pete's sake. Even my kids, when they're like, Miss Smith, why did you become a teacher? I don't know. Okay. That was always my answer. Because it's like, some days, no, well, I don't want to be here, but yet here I am. Okay. But it was always, and my mom always used to joke to me. She said, you don't suffer fools gladly. I said, no, I don't. And that's part of the thing. And so this to me, this was the perfect psychological observation of looking at what other people are going through in their own little quests, in their own little psychological steps of life, whether it be the choices they made, the choices they're going to make, the age, whatever. So that's where I got it.
I mean, I understand the psychological choices or the choice of where they're at in their life and you
Mhm.
know what they're being portrayed at. I mean, his labeling of people just kind of irritated me because I thought, well, who gives you the right to walk around and put a label on somebody? You don't know
Mhm.
them. You don't know why they're in that circumstance. I mean, this stuff is going through my head. I'm getting worked up with a character who doesn't have a name, but it's like, I really don't like you at this point. But
Mhm.
that's me. But but sometimes, do we really see them? Is what came to my mind.
Mhm.
Do we really see them, or are we seeing what we think they are without actually knowing who they are? Do we understand why they're in this situation, or what's going on in their lives, or do we automatically pass judgment, like society does, based on whatever street they grew up on, what their family last name is, what state, what city, what the family history is, whatever? They just that it's already present when that person is born into that world or whatever is going on. You know, some people have automatically have strikes against them just because of a family name or of something that happened in the past. And, you know, we can't see past it sometimes. We try to, I think, but then we just kind of fall in that trap again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
Well,
one thing that I kind of latched onto is a particular quote at the beginning where he says, "At first, my observations took an abstract and generalizing turn. I looked at the passengers in masses and thought of them in their aggregate relations. Soon, however, I descended to details and regarded with minute interest the innumerable varieties of figure, dress, air, gait, visage, and expression of countenance." And for me, that quote right there, because Poe, there's so many things that he kind of started. And so the first thing that came to my mind was he kind of invented the term of people watching, because that's what this man is doing in essence. And so I thought that was kind of really cool. But then a little bit later, once he sees this decrepit old man, what really strikes him, and that's what, like, the first thing that kind of lures him in to start following him is the man's expression. So it also reminded me of like the cask of Amontillado. Keith, you just said something like it could be somebody's name.
Yeah.
That's, Montresor's whole thing was
Yeah.
the defaming the name. And so it's like the man's expression lured this person in to start following him. And it's like, why his expression? What was it that above everybody else that he was watching really pulled him in?
Well,
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Carmen,
Jeannie
going
I
said,
along with
agree.
Going along with what you're saying, one of the things that kept hitting me throughout the story
Mm-hmm.
is the narrator. Who is the
Yeah.
narrator?
Yes,
The narrator to me is Edgar Allan Poe himself.
I think so too.
Being in cities and walking around and observing people and watching people and then using some things that he's possibly observed or has thought about in his stories, and in this story in particular, I kept thinking the narrator is him himself, but he may not be in London. This may have been in Baltimore, or this may have been in Philadelphia, or
Yeah.
or
New York.
any city that he was
Yeah.
living in.
Mm-hmm.
That he was a people watcher himself,
Mm-hmm.
and that he would see someone and not even know who they are, but in his mind he'd think, well, I can make a story out of this. So I kept thinking,
Yeah.
this is Poe. This is Poe. He's the big narrator here.
And I guess I agree, Gary. I guess I took it to a different level, which I was thinking this is Hitchcock because I kept thinking of
Ooh.
Well,
Rear
that's
Window.
true too.
Mm-hmm.
And in Rear Window, you know, again, it's kind of the same concept. It's just it
Yes.
from a apartment instead of from a coffee shop. But he's
Mm-hmm.
watching all these different scenes, and he's kind of almost inventing what's going on in these different apartments. He happens to get it right about the murder, but that was just kind of speculation on his part. So
Yeah.
I, it I guess my feeling is I find that interesting in the in Rear Window, but in this story, it's less satisfying because there's no reveal
No, there
of
isn't. Yeah.
of what this guy, what the old man is all about. It feels incomplete to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another little quote, and it was in German, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but it's like, "Er last sick night lesson. He cannot be read." And there was a couple things in there that said
I
something
looked
like
it up because I had to
Yeah.
know what that
I
meant.
had to, I did too. And this is
So I'm like,
toward
that
the
drives me
end.
nuts.
And so I think,
Yeah.
Steve, with what you're saying, there was no reveal because he couldn't be read. Like you
Right.
could not figure
Right.
out, the narrator
Right.
could not figure out, or
Right.
as an unreliable narrator, he
Uh-huh.
didn't want to tell us, maybe.
It could almost bring in another story that could possibly be a follow-up to this, if
Yeah.
he was still alive, because I don't think he had any satisfaction, which is kind of like what Steve was saying himself, the narrator.
Yeah.
And I think Poe went through that. It's like I kept thinking, like, what city is he in? He's not in London. He's got to be somewhere else, watching somebody.
We've had so many Poe stories where he uses doppelgangers and unreliable narrators, and I think this story had both of those. I think he basically was. I think he was seeing himself in a lot of these people in the crowd, and maybe he couldn't recognize that. That's maybe the unreliable narrator part.
Right.
But at the end, on the last few lines of the story, he says, "This old man is the type and the genius of deep crime."
Yeah.
And maybe he's admitting that about himself as well.
That's true.
I kind of think so.
Or maybe because he's all, we've had so many stories of Poe as unreliable narrator. I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting out to read these thinking that's what we're going to have. Maybe it's poisoned my reading to the point where I'm having trouble now. I want to find a story where he's a reliable narrator.
Yeah.
But I think Poe uses that. He uses that tool to get across his jokes and his hoaxes and his tricks. So there's this big bang at the end, like, oh my, and it leaves you wondering, what did I just read?
Yeah.
Right. And there's been times with some stories I have to read it more than once to try to get what the hell's going on.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's right or not. I just kind of think he's seeing himself. He's following himself around. All these people are a bit of him. He's following all of them.
Exactly.
They're not in the crowd. They're of it. It's just one big, like you said, that aggregate feeling.
I think so.
Yeah, the narrator mentions the lurking of an old fever in my system. So he's been sick recently, and that may be coloring his his assessments of people, and maybe even the old man himself. Is the old man even real, or is this another William Wilson type situation? Is the old man the narrator himself, or does he identify with the narrator? But yeah, Keith, you said that this story was ahead of its time. It reminded me of how about 110 years after this story, Steve Allen did those man in the street interviews with people like Don Knotts and Tom Poston. So Poe was ahead of his time in observing these nameless people and ascribing stories to them.
Well, he was. And I kind of throw that time traveler out to people now, just not because I'm really invested in it. It's just an interesting concept, but I kind of like watching their expressions and they kind of implode on themselves when I say it.
Yeah.
What, that Poe was a time traveler?
Yeah, I mentioned it because I've got some friends that are like experts, and they remind me of this all the time when they come over, and just they're just. I don't think they're experts. I think they're just stuck on a couple of stories that they're good at, and they just repeat them all the time. And I just mentioned time traveling. And you would have thought I had thrown hot coffee in her lap and set her on fire. She was the gas. She clutched her pearls. I'm like, get over it. This isn't the South back in the 19th century, But I'm like, I thought she was going to faint.
Well, one thing I just looked this up because I couldn't remember what year it was published. A couple of, like Cheryl said, doppelganger, Dr. Jeff said about William Wilson. That was published in 1839. So he could have kind of thought about those ideas, and this is where this story came from, possibly, or elements of it.
Well, I think this story, he wasn't using it kind of like what he did with William Wilson and everything, because this also is a perfect example of the scientific method of observation, because he is not interacting per se with any of these people. He is simply using observation
Right.
skills and
Right.
using his own thoughts and his own feelings,
Mm-hmm.
which is the
Mm-hmm.
the what we have now is behavioral profiling.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's the thing. And so he's looking at it, and I think he's implementing the scientific aspect of it when he's identifying these people, but he's not doing it. And yes, it is prejudicial because, Keith, this time period is all about prejudice. Every time period is all about prejudice, whether it's
Right.
where you come from, whether it's, anything. I mean, the first time I went to Florida and met some people and they found out where I was from, they looked down at my feet and looked at me and says, "But you're wearing shoes."
Mm.
It was kind of like when I moved there and I
Wow.
said I was from
Yes.
Virginia, and the woman said, "Well, that's funny. I can understand you."
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, and the reason they asked me about that is because Beverly Hillbillies happened to be very popular on television at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there are prejudices that have been built, and there will always be prejudice, especially when we are divided, we are divided both by dialect, by socioeconomics, by whatever you want to put in place, and we are divided by history. So Poe was pointing out what he was observing from his own studies, from his own, mind, but he was doing it, in my opinion, from a scientific
Yeah.
saying, okay, well, I'm taking what they look like, I'm taking how they're moving, I'm applying that because as we people watch, I do it all the time, especially at the airport. It's hilarious.
It was Walmart.
Oh yeah, yeah. Walmart's a whole nother ball game all its own,
That is a world into itself. I mean, I walk in there sometimes and I'm like, I do not know where I'm at, and I turn around and walk out.
Exactly. Especially 2 a.m. If you've never been to Walmart at 2 a.m., you've not lived. I'm
No,
I
just
think
saying.
that's a phone, Steve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Steve
So
said, "Is that a TV remote control on the table next to the skull in Jeannie's background?" It looks
probably.
like it.
I think
Yeah,
it's a
it's probably
phone.
it's my paperweight or a knife. I haven't
Yeah.
figured out which yet. Um,
Well, and just something to think about too with what Jeannie just said with the scientific method of observation. This was written in 1840. Murders in the Rue Morgue came out in 1841. So he may have had the detective on his mind.
well, if
mhm.
the guy, the unnamed narrator, that turkey, at one point, I kind of thought he was going to try to figure this out because he was kind of being logical about what he was doing and thinking. You know what I'm saying? And I thought,
Yeah.
well, and then of course you're kind of right there because that kind of does lead into the detective. But it's kind of like he's bridging the gothic with the detective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then the next bridge will be the next one.
Yeah, this is sort of a precursor to a ratiocination type story.
Hmm.
He's
Mhm.
making judgments with little or no evidence in this one, whereas later Dupin will make judgments using evidence.
Yes,
Yeah, he's
absolutely.
building hypotheticals based on just what he knows plus what he observes, which is the scientific method. You start with what, and then you go about to try to prove them. So this
Did
is
anyone kind of like when he had the story written in his time period? Did anyone like the critics or anyone kind of like react badly to it? I'm curious. Is because I read Eureka after I read this, and Eureka was that prose of his that kind of dealt with his thoughts and feelings about things, and he got
Mhm.
panned for it badly. And I
Mm.
thought when I'm reading it, I'm like, why? He's kind of making sense here. Why isn't anyone listening?
Hmm.
mhm.
I mean, common sense is a good thing. A lot of people lack it now, but I think it's great if you have it.
Well, the problem with that is that we don't have commonality anymore.
No, yeah, well, that's absolutely
Yeah,
right.
is that what we used to know as common is not common anymore. So there's no longer common anything. So Mike, or what were you going to say?
Just a
Where'd you go,
couple of
Jeannie?
things.
There you are.
The in all the Poe that I've read over my life, I've, the after I finish the work, I feel either romantic I feel sad. I feel scared as hell. I feel something. When I finished this story, I felt empty. And maybe it's because I'm coming out of my own bag. I have leukemia. Holly knows. I don't know if anybody else does. And I was looking at this kind of like through my life, which is probably a wrong way to look at this. But as Carmen mentioned earlier, the opening beginning, when it says, oh, what does it say? It does not permit itself to be read like a German book, particular book. And then he repeats that again at the end of he repeats the same verbiage at the end of this of the piece of work. And then when I finished that end of that piece of work, I remember back in either 1969 or 70, Holly, you wasn't even born then. 1969, 1970, there was a singer named Peggy Lee.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if any of you remember her.
Oh, yes.
She started country western and then blues and she did all kinds of stuff. She made a song that became very popular and it was called Is That All There Is? And if you listen to that song, it was the most depressing damn song I think I ever heard. Is that all there is? If house caught on fire, well, is that all there is? Let's keep drinking. Well, when I finished this
Very
story,
nihilistic.
in the end of the crowd, I felt, well, is that all there is? There's a whole bunch of different kind of people. There's a man with an old suit that was made out of good material at one time. Is that all there is? Well, let's just keep on dancing.
I played that song on WAMB many times.
Yeah, with the way
my grandmother someone
that's
had
the
a
song
copy of
came
that
to
record.
mind when I read. So I don't mean to be a downer or a negative on this, but if I had to rank all the stories of Poe that I read, this would not be in my top 10.
No.
This would be something just less me feeling.
Is that it?
I felt I wanted some sort of resolution, and I didn't get it. Okay, that's really all I think about the story.
I feel the same way. I feel
sorry,
the same way. No,
everybody.
it just didn't seem to have the resolution that his other stories have.
No.
Just sort of like, I'm just going to leave you hanging. Sorry.
But I'm going to put this up a little higher on my Poe list, and the only reason I'm doing it is because I was going through a lot, and I read it again, but it kind of got me thinking again. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't just, a sheep in the herd like I had been for a few months after contract doing what I was told and all this stuff. Because, I was saying what was going on. No one was listening to me. I was told to be quiet, and, all that crap. And then I kind of really let the cat out of the bag, and so I kind of lost a couple of contracts, but I don't care. But I started thinking again, and I thought, it just, just all about it. Just the loneliness and all that to it. But then I thought about, well, I live alone. I like being alone. It took me a couple of years to realize, hey, I like me, because the first couple of years of me living on my own, I was like, oh, God, I'm going to kill myself for this, because I was just all over the place. But it took me a while just to get used to me. Because then I discovered no wonder I got on my mother's nerves. But just little things happen.
Yeah. Well, and I will say that this one still ranks higher than Some Words with a Mummy, but I haven't met a story of Poe's that will ever replace that one for me as the worst ever, but that's just me. But the one thing about this story, and I'm with you, Mike, it just it left you going, why? What was the point? Well, I mean, where were you going with this, dude? What were you just needing to break through a writer's block? Were you bored one day and watching people walking down the street? I mean, come on. Because I mean, there's some days you like to just sit back and watch the world and go, wonder where they're going, or wonder what they're doing, or anything like that. And then sometimes it's like, wow, that must be boring. What are they thinking? So it was just a rather blah story, because it's like, unless you're actually the person doing the observing and watching the people, it kind of just didn't raise any kind of ideas for me. There was no point in it. The guy was walking around in circles. He had a dagger in his hand. Whoopee. Even today's standards, somebody walking down the street with a dagger in their hand, nobody would blink twice. I mean,
That's
would
because we're
they?
all invisible to each other.
Yeah.
I think the issue is not so much. I mean, so we understand that this story is premised primarily on the narrator observing these people. I guess what I keep coming back to is, what was Poe wanting to convey? It's not how we interpret it. 'Cause I was intrigued when Gary at the beginning was talking about the kind of metaphor for how we're all absorbed in our own little worlds and our own cell phones, etc. I think that's a modern interpretation of what's going on in the street. But what was Poe trying to say? And the fact that the first quarter of the story or a third of the story is just talking about this kind of typology, that there are these very high functioning people and these lawyers and these doctors and the nobility. And then he kind of works his way down to the lesser people. He's creating all these categories. And I'm not sure, why did he do that? Was that important to the story of being able to place this particular old man in a category? It's like it seemed to me that he was kind of starting off without really even understanding where he was going to go with the story, and at the end he kind of just felt like, well, I'm really not sure how to resolve this, so I'll just end it. So I come down much more negatively on this. I just felt like there's no point, there's no moral, there's no lesson to this. It's just watching through a window and then following somebody through the streets.
So for
And,
me,
and what
Steve,
intrigued me, and again, I kudos to Cheryl, because the piece that Cheryl sent earlier, I think finds much more depth in it, talking about the doppelganger and talking about, was the old man the double of the narrator? But I didn't see any of that as I read the story, and even as I reread the story.
yeah,
I just assumed that he was, because we've read so many stories like that.
Yeah.
That was what I was saying was my problem, is that when I start to read Poe now, I'm thinking, okay, I'm on the lookout for the unreliable narrator and the doppelganger. And maybe I can't separate that out anymore. I don't know. I hope I can, because not all his stories are like that, but it does color my reading.
I think for me it wasn't like a literal doppelganger, but I do feel like I think that Poe did a great job of building suspense. And what I think he was aiming to do, for at least from the writer's perspective, when he was doing this analysis of all these people, if you've noticed, when he was talking about a lot of them, a lot of things didn't necessarily match. Like the young men that were walking a little too quickly, or the man with the nice clothes but they weren't worn. I think it was actually subliminally talking about like the masks that we all wear, you know. So I think he was building suspense like that, like kind of like going back to what Keith was saying, like, we're not really what we seem, like you're judging us, but we may look a certain way, but that's not who we are. So I think he was basically almost like glimpsing behind the masks that all these people are seeing, that we put out, because we all have masks. I have many, many masks, and so I think that Poe actually did a good job for me building the suspense of that, because I was curious. As I was rereading this, okay, like, well, where is he going to follow this old man to? And that's where I kept guessing, like, what does this old man represent to the narrator? But I will say that the punchline at the end did personally fall a little short for me. Like, I was kind of like, even something as simple, again, I'm not going to rewrite the story, so I'm not going to go there. But I'm just saying, like, it did fall a little short for me at the end, but I think up into the punchline where slightly failed for me, I do think that he did a good job of building suspense and kind of building interest, because I was interested to see what was the point, where was he going with these characters. But I do feel like that was all just him kind of basically pointing out the masks that we all wear in our daily lives.
Mm-hmm.
I was just
Well,
thinking.
I was going to say, Holly.
Go ahead,
Steve.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, Holly, I kind of agree with you. I feel like that's exactly. It's just to me, it wasn't as suspenseful as a lot of his other stories.
Yeah.
It was more subtle, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
I mean, it could have been a banger. Like if the end, like if it would have been something like because
I
he
was
had
kind of expecting
fever.
something
Because
major
in the
to
beginning
happen, and it really.
he was talking about looking in the mirror in the very, very beginning. So I almost thought at one point, because he was feverish, that he was going to realize that he was just chasing himself necessarily. Because I couldn't really remember the ending. Like I couldn't remember the punchline, but that's like where my mind was going. Not that saying that that would have been better than the ending, but yeah, it just, I mean, and again, like and like Poe, like especially this is like I think that his criticism, right, is that he was too smart for his readers. Like your last lines in a different language that most people don't speak. I mean, it's kind of like yeah, you know what I mean. And he does that a lot, and I mean, I get he's highbrow and he had this great education, but from the reader's perspective, like I'm not saying you should dumb yourself down for me, but holy crap, it would not hurt, especially if that's your punchline. So I mean, I can't imagine this going over well with like the average reader of the day who had very little education.
But
I
you
wouldn't
also have to
recommend it as the first story to ever read because they probably would think, ugh, I'm not going to read anything else.
But when he wrote it at the time, there was the plethora of people that were speaking different languages in this day and age. They could understand it because they were people that were multilingual, and only those that could actually read and had an education would be reading these works. These were not written for common people.
I guess you're right because I think
right.
they would pay to have someone read it out loud to them. I think it's generally how it would go. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to take into account the cultural of the day, the cultural identity of the time period when he's writing this. The United States was very much a melting pot of all of these
languages.
You had all of most of Europe, you had Africa, you had South America, you had all these people that spoke different languages and could understand other languages.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really a lot about Poe writing highbrow stuff. He was writing to the masses that could read and could read his work. And even those that were being read to could understand the languages. So
but I know he was criticized in his life for that though. And I think that's why Dickens was so much more popular because Dickens didn't really do that.
Dickens wrote for the common
man, where I think, and it's not that I think Poe was trying to say like, look at me, I have this great education. I just think that he was just so educated, and generally the people he surrounded himself were people like himself. You tend to, it's like they always say, like, you tend to act like the people you're with. So I don't think that was his intention per se, but I do think it did kind of ostracize him a little bit in the.
Well, and yet in his personal life, a lot of authors and people that were on the same wavelength that he was didn't care for him. Didn't care for him or what he wrote.
I don't think he made it. I can relate to this. Sometimes, I make it hard to love me. I think Poe made it hard to love him.
Yes.
I can relate. It's like your worst enemy is yourself.
He wrote some pretty strong criticism against some of these authors. And like, I've got this picture on my wall where he's looking off in the back by himself and everybody else around him, all these authors are ignoring him like he's not even in the room.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you dig your hole. I mean, all you can do is dig it deeper and then go to bed.
That's true. One other piece I'm going to pull out, and I think it could possibly tie to the ending with the book he mentions, Hortulus Anime, which means Latin for Little Garden of the Soul. And I looked it up, it was a devotional prayer book that was popular in the 15th and 16th century. And it was actually first published or printed, I'm sorry, in 1498. But and when he talks about it, he can't be read and talking about that was like a horrible book. And so then going back, one of the last places that he follows him to, because he stays in there for so long, and the narrator will not enter, but he waits for him. The quote is, "Once more he strode onward with elastic tread, Suddenly a corner was turned, a blaze of light burst upon our sight, and we stood before one of the huge suburban temples of intemperance, one of the palaces of the fiend Jinn. And so he also uses personification there, which, when you look at the whole story, he doesn't use as much figurative language, but there he's calling the Jinn the fiend. And so, knowing that Poe had what is believed to be like a sensitivity to alcohol, and then talking about this devotional book too at the end, it's like, was he sending a tiny message trying to show that he was against drinking? I mean, and he was more for temperance. He did sign the pledge like in 1849, not too long before he died, because Elmira Royster Shelton made him do it to be able to marry him.
Right.
But it was kind of like, I don't know, that just kind of stuck out to me, that the narrator would not go in that place. He waited for him outside. And so wasn't that just a little stick to say,
I think you're right.
I don't know. I may be totally off, but that stuck out to me too.
And you know what's funny, Carmen? That elastic tread, when I read it, I was like, oh, that's like such a great descriptor.
Yes.
Like, I love that.
Elastic
I
like,
know.
write that down. I like that elastic tread. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Well, did you catch where he made the likeness to detectives or to police officers with the gumshoes? Because this was before, Dupine, and they used to call beat cops as gumshoes because the soles of their shoes were so quiet and they were made from the gum of trees.
Yes.
Right.
And so that's why they were called gumshoes.
Yeah, this does seem a precursor to Murders in the Rue Morgue.
Yeah, now that you guys said that, yeah, definitely.
He was
I didn't think that
practicing.
initially. Yeah.
I know this has nothing to do with this story, but there was that movie that came out, I think, in the 40s, early 50s, called The Bass in the Crowd, Patricia Neal and Andy Griffith, and he played this down-home yokum, spun wisdom, and the public loved him. He was just simple and down to earth, and he could relate with them. And I'm watching this, and I'm watching him the entire time, and I did not like the character from the time he came on the screen until he left. There was something about him that just, something about him I just didn't like. I'm like, he's a snake. He's up to something. And then what happens is he lets his opinion about what he thinks of the public around him come out on an open mic. And it's just, the titles, I was trying to fix the title from this story, and with that one, I was trying to find a common ground with it. It's just something I do sometimes. I take it and I run with it for a while. I hit a dead end. I'm going, let's move on to another story.
Oh, I mean, it's easy to do.
Yeah, but I think it was the judgment thing I had come back again to. It was just, I'm like, well, he judged those people. He's judging them, and I'm like, it seems like it's a common theme that's always been present, and it's just keeps becoming more pronounced, and people are starting to recognize it more now than they did before.
Well, and you actually have to look at the history, and you go all the way back to the Grecian days, where the pyramid of how people were, the status of the people, nobles, and then you had the priests, and then you had those that were the recorders, those that actually wrote down the history, and then you had the plebeians, and then you had the peasants, and then you had the slaves. So we've always had that archetype. We've had that stair step of social pyramids since the beginning of time. And it just shifts over many generations, but we always put everybody in those socioeconomic and archetypes. And this was, in my opinion, Poe's homage to his modern time of doing that. Because when he was doing all those descriptions, he definitely was just doing the definition of what dandies and gamblers and all those people, the con man and everything. It was the perfect example of those time periods and the way people were expecting to see them. The harlots, those kinds of things. And he was just showing his own observations based on that time period. And like in today, if you took someone to rewrite that story and wrote The Man of the Crowd, you would see probably a lot of the same generalizations, but in different order and
I
different
think it would be a little bit
ways.
more harsh this day and age if they were to
Uh-huh.
rewrite that story. I think if they wrote it if for this time period, I think it would kind of be a real harsh slap in the face for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also have to understand that it would have to be written by more than one person
True.
because each hierarchy has different views and different,
Yeah.
the old song of rose-colored glasses
Hmm.
that they would be writing it through
That's
and
true.
people would be reading it through.
But that's
And
true. It's kind of like English teacher gave all of us the same assignment, but broke it down, and each of us got a different version of the poem, but we were not aware of it. So we each had a
exactly.
totally different interpretation when we did the report, which caused a very nice debate my senior year in high school, and I enjoyed it.
Hmm. Yeah, but that's because we were taught how to debate. In today's time period, there's no structure of debate.
Well, but there's
There's no
no
understanding.
stability to it, I think. I mean, there's no
Yes.
politeness. It's just rude.
Yes.
Well,
People
I
actually
really
think arguing is
was
debate, but that's not it. So go. I'm sorry, Mike. What was it?
no, you're fine. I was just thinking what Holly said earlier when she's talking about the classes, and it was just mentioned just now again. It crossed my mind. I had thought about this before, and I don't even know if this is valid. But when Poe talks about, he describes all the different classes of the people that he's looking at, and when he describes the old man, two things come up. One of them, he talks about the portrait by Resch, or the German painter. I can't pronounce his name properly. The devil. What is
Yes,
that
right.
painting he did? The devil chessmate. The devil's
Mhm.
checkmate. That's what it is.
Right.
And the painting, if you've looked at it, is a fiend that he is referring to. But the thing that
Mhm.
crossed my mind, and when Ollie was talking, he's talking about these different classes. And then he describes the old man as being fiendy, wearing a dirty, raggedy, but from a distance. Remember, you don't want to get too close because you don't want to know the guy's stalking him. So from a distance, he says, but it was very good material, beautiful cloth, I think he said at one time.
Right.
And it crossed my mind that could this be a weak testament in discussing the fluidity of the classes? Like the old thing, there but for the grace of God go I. If the man had on a suit that was worn out but was good material, maybe he had a lot of money at one time. Maybe he was one of the upper class ones. And everything just kind of fluid. That's the only word that comes to mind right now. And I don't know if that's valid or not. And it was just a last minute thought as I was hearing you talk.
Yeah, I think
Makes
that's a
sense
good
to
Doesn't mean
point.
anything, but
Yeah.
it's just a thought.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was going to say fluid with the whole thing being a circle where it, ends where it begins.
Yeah, and
That's a
he's
nice way
of
to
the
end
crowd.
this, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
that was a good
of
point.
the crowd, not in the crowd. He's of it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I added a link, and it's actually a book I read a while ago. Think I listened to it, and I think it was 4 or 5 hours of a read. It's 224 pages, but it's called The Man of the Crowd, Edgar Allan Poe and the City by Scott Peoples. And just the little blurb that will help you know like what he did with this book. Scott Peoples chronicles Poe's rootless life in the cities, neighborhoods, and rooms where he lived and worked, exploring how each new place left its enduring mark on the writer and his craft. And I really enjoyed the book. I think I was like cleaning the house that day and like listened to the whole thing in one afternoon. And he takes this story and takes all the places Poe lived and showed how Poe was the man of the crowd. And so just if you get a chance to listen, read it, however you like it, I do suggest it. It was a very enjoyable read, and if I remember correctly, it may have been the author that read it. Whoever read it had a very nice voice. So
And what was the author's name again? I'm sorry.
it's called Edgar Allan Poe. Let me go back to it and make sure. The Man of the Crowd, Edgar Allan Poe and the City, Scott Peoples. And if you grab that link I put in the chat, you'll be able to just go right to it on Amazon.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why is it that in so many of his stories, and I guess I'm showing my ignorance, that like names of places and stuff, they have one letter with a blank? Does anybody know why that seems to occur fairly often? What is that all about?
I can only answer with my own that I interpret it as, because he doesn't say very often the particular places, he just gives descriptions of the settings. He leaves those blank, so in whatever city you want to place this story, there is going to be like a Dearborn Hotel, or one of those things, like whatever big city that comes to mind that he imparts to you, there's always going to be something that you can relate to that starts with that letter.
Yeah.
So in other words, what you're saying is that Poe did that himself. That wasn't something that the publisher did.
No, I wouldn't think so, because
he did it.
In my opinion, he did it himself just because he wanted to leave it that vagueness. It's kind of like the, unidentified narrator. He wanted to leave it open.
Okay.
Because that's one thing I've always said about Poe. He gives his audience their own way of filling in things to put themselves in his stories.
Yeah.
I understand that, and I've seen that for years, but I was just always curious why that? But that makes sense. Certainly.
Yeah. And in this particular story, he does tell that it is in London, but and I've also
a lot of times he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And what Jeannie said is exactly what he did. And with names where he does that, like Mr., and then it'll be like S blank. There are certain works that he has that you can kind of interpret it as someone that he doesn't like, or it's someone he's not wanting to just say the name. But if you know the context of why he's writing what he's writing, or however the story links to someone else, then you can kind of interpret, oh, he's probably referring to this person. He did that especially with ladies' names in poems.
It's probably kind of the same deal that I mentioned earlier about how he doesn't want to piss certain people off.
Right. Because he's already made a lot of people mad already.
Right. And people back in those days might figure out who it is, but you and I wouldn't.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and there was a lot of defamation and slander going on in those early days, because you had in the late 1700s with the Zinger trials over the whole thing with freedom of press that came to be. And so that kind of started all that, and then the interpretation of the First Amendment rights and all that.
And I kind of knew that anyway, because I taught history for 35 years, but I was just curious about that.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. And then just to add in, Poe fought for copyright laws too, because of back then people were stealing each other's stuff right and left.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I know.
Now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially with AI and things like that.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts on the Man of the Crowd?
I just liked it because it made me think, and I hadn't been thinking for a while. And kind of like me coming back out and going, okay.
I guess I just emphasize one theme that folks already brought up, but it really resonates for me, and that is, who is Poe writing for? With his, this doesn't just apply to the man of the crowd, but certainly that's relevant. But with his quotation, foreign quotations and everything else, is he didn't strike me as a popular author? Is he just writing for the literati? And in which case, maybe there's just many levels of depth to this that I'm not able to catch. Or if he's writing just for popular magazines, maybe it's just very surface level, looking in a crowd, and there's this guy, and we're trying to figure out who it is, and we don't really know. But I want to believe that there are much deeper levels of meaning to this, kind of along the lines of the article that Cheryl had sent, that suggests, no, Poe's 6 steps ahead of me. I just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
That ran through my mind like there's another point to this someplace. It's going to hit me later.
I think Poe writes for himself. I mean,
that's true.
To be honest, like he was always saying, like he wants to be proud of himself. Like I know he talked about his poetry. Like I think he writes to make himself proud. And I know, like in today's day and age, like the writer, they call it writing to market, and that's like considered not. You shouldn't do that if you want to be a successful author. We've all heard it, the right to market. But I think at the end of the day, Poe was like, "Screw you guys! I'm gonna write good stuff that I know is good, and yeah, you guys need to catch up and meet me here or meet me halfway because this is good."
Yeah.
So I think that he wrote to impress himself, and I think that's why he kept going back. We all edit, but at some point most of us just let it go. He was constantly editing up until he died. I think he wrote to impress himself. Now, of course, I have no idea to prove that, but it's just like how I take him from from everything, that I think that he wrote for himself, and there's nothing wrong for that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
No.
Yeah.
Well, in some ways, he was not very popular among a mass number of people, and I don't think he cared.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, he knew what he wrote was good. Like that's like when he went to Boston, he read Tamburlaine or not? Yeah, yeah, because and they want him to read The Raven. He's like, yeah, I don't care that I wrote this when I was 16. It's a good poem. I'm sorry if you don't think it is, but it is.
Right,
like
it is.
Mic drop. Like I feel like again, these are things that made him his own worst enemy. But I think at the end of the day, he had conviction and he had passion. He stood by that to the end. And you have to admire him for that.
He played his own game, and to hell with what anybody else thought.
Yeah, and I mean to be that to believe in yourself that strongly, even when everything is like turning in on you and imploding, I mean it's really admirable. I mean it's pretty awesome.
I think so too.
A role model to us all.
Yes.
It made him a great writer. Let's be honest.
Yeah, now today that's why if he would have given in to right to market, which I'm sure they called it something else then, he would have been forgotten about. It's like so many authors that were popular in the day that we've never heard of today.
Right. We might not be reading him at all.
Exactly. He stood by what he believed in, and
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But they're kind of slowly recycling the classics out and replacing them with. They're calling them classics, and I picked them up because I want to be fair about it, and I read it, and I'm going, well, you kind of whitewashed a lot of things here, buddy.
Yeah. Micah, you raised your hand. Did you want to say?
Hey, Carmen. Yeah. Once again, longtime listener, first time caller. Thanks for taking my call, Carmen. I really appreciate it. And it has been a pleasure listening to all of you people smarter than me. And speaking of that, Steve can chime in on this. You guys have already talked about ratiocination, which is, I mean, obviously I'm really into, Steve's really into. And I thought, ironically, for all of his genius, Dupin was not necessarily well known for picking up on physical outward details and coming up with deductions. He was brilliant in other things, but not necessarily that. Although this skill does appear with the narrator in this story. And when we talk about, but it's right out of Sherlock Holmes's playbook. And whenever we talk about Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle, we talk about Dr. Joseph Bell, Doyle's mentor. And it was Bell who came up with this this ability and this skill and this talent to look at physical traits and come up with observations and deductions, like the brilliant passage in this story of the ear is bent down slightly because of the pencil, and therefore it's a clerk. That is right out of Holmes's playbook. Although Dupin is not necessarily known for it, Sherlock Holmes was. And whenever we talk about Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle, we talk about Dr. Joseph Bell. Oh, he was brilliant at that, and that's how Arthur Conan Doyle got it. Well, now we have proof that once again, Poe was there first. Poe came up with this first. So it's entirely now Joseph Bell probably stole it from Poe as well. But once again, we have proof that Poe came up with it first. And then finally, the last thing I want to say, and again, I know we're going to OT, so I'm going to try to make this fast.
It's all
On
good.
Sunday night, well, thank you, Carmen. All right, Carmen's not going to put down a red flag on the play, so I'm going to keep running here. So thank you, Carmen. You are a kind and magnanimous rep. So Sunday night, I was part of an interactive Discord fairy tale where you get to interact with the story and you get to interact with the characters. And during this story, we were on these paths, and it said on one of the passages of the experience, you see beyond the path and you see yourself in the future. And I remember thinking, wow, if I see myself getting back to my ex, I'm going to be pissed. So anyway, I that locked into my mind. And then 2 days later, I'm doing my homework for this and listening to you wonderful people. And just before I come onto the Zoom, I look at one of the literary analyses of this, and it says, oh, well, the narrator's just seeing himself in the future. And I thought, oh my God, that was crazy. Oh my God, the synchronicity. I can't wait to drop this bomb on my fellow nerds. And then sure enough, Cheryl says, you know what? Maybe it was just him looking at him in the future. And I was like, damn it, Cheryl. And I realized Cheryl was literally one step ahead about a story about a guy who was literally one step ahead. So well played, Cheryl. Well played, Edgar Allan Poe. And thanks for taking my call. And it's a pleasure to see you guys.
Thank you, Micah.
Glad to hear you, Micah.
Yes, yes. So, well, I think we've had a great discussion on this tonight. I think all the different things that you guys said, I love the different takes on this. And, thinking about that this did really not have a resolution. And I really do like this story because I like the mystery, the suspense that he builds, and just I guess, letting my own brain decide what's going to be the next step of the narrator and the old man. And so, but
somebody ought to write a story.
Oh, yeah, I've got so many already in my brain planned. It's hard to make room, but yes, part 2 would be a really cool story.
It would. Who's going to do that?
I don't know. But yeah, and so
there'd be a whole lot of death and people getting run over by carriages and horses and mine.
Yeah, I mean, you could even turn this into a serial killer story too. And it's like,
yes,
who
you
is
could.
the real
Yes,
serial
you
killer?
could.
Is it the narrator or is it the old man? Micah
or is
said,
it
"Get to
someone
work,
else of the
Holly."
bride?
Micah said, "Get to work, Holly." So coming up next month, April 28th is our date, and we had decided to look at the Wednesday series and watch the 2 seasons and talk about the Poe elements in Wednesday. So that'll be kind of a fun, different thing to do.
Which 2 seasons? The first one, the second one, the second one, and third one? I can't remember.
And so
I've not watched it, so I'm excited about watching it.
It's great.
Yeah, it's really good.
My wife loves it.
I'm going to rewatch it just so it'll be fresh.
I'm going to have a notebook so I can write it all down.
Oh, yes. And then something.
Where can you watch that? Where can we watch that?
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. And then
there's 2 seasons, you said.
Yes, 2 seasons. And it's only like, I think, is it 10 episodes each season? It's
Probably.
It's not a long series.
Yeah,
is it not going to have a 3rd season if they already
decided? It is.
Yeah.
And they're bringing on Eva Green to play Morticia's sister Ophelia, which I think is very good casting, because she was in Penny Dreadful and was amazing in that.
He's good at casting the right people for the right characters when he does his series.
Yes, Keith. definitely. And something that Keith had mentioned, talking about, and possibly either like Jeannie and I doing a podcast episode, or we could talk about it, or we could do both. Kind of talking about time, Poe, and time traveling, and just some of the coincidences that have happened with things he wrote about versus real life. And so, Keith, I wanted to mention that Jeannie and I had a discussion about this the other night, and we think it's an awesome idea. And so we're going to save it to
YouTube.
season 2. I mean, our season 6. I'm sorry, because we're in season 5. Does that sound good?
Yeah, because of all the training, we're doing that reinforced human element now to make the machine a little bit nicer and understand things and learn. I've learned
Hey,
prompts.
Keith can't really hear you. Something's
I'm
going
sorry.
on with your.
I got it. I'm sorry. I've got
That's
to replace
okay.
it. The dog had fun with it in the yard the other day. So what happened was I was just programming things into YouTube just for a lark to see what would come back, and sometimes it's not proper. And I didn't realize YouTube had been around since the 70s either. Ooh. But then all of a sudden I hit this little algorithm kind of link thing, and I just started following it. And then all of a sudden I came into this big old room full of Poe and time traveling and Poe and this event and Poe and that event, and I just started watching them. Now, I'm not saying that I'm falling for all this, that I'm a conspiracy theory. It just interests me. Because, when people have a different train of thought than I do, I want to know what they're getting out of it compared to what I'm getting out of it, just so I can see if it's fair. And I came across that. And I'm like, oh, I spent a weekend binge watching. I had a great time.
Oh yeah. No, I think I think it'd be a fun topic to talk about, because there are several coincidences in his writing versus what happened later on. And so, yeah, I think Jeannie and I both were like, yeah, we could do this, but we'll definitely do it in season 6, which our new season starts in August. And so even though we don't ever stop, we do have an ending to the season and a beginning to the next season.
You mean on your podcast?
Well, that's news to me. I didn't know that.
Yes.
I'm catching up.
It's
listened
okay.
to 'em.
Gary, I don't know those things either. She just tells me.
I listen to the podcast kind of like when I don't want to read, or I'm just kind of like bumming around the house, and I just put it on Spotify and lay down on the couch
Let
with
it
the dog,
go.
and I have a great time. I'm like, oh, and I get some of the humor. I get some of the humor sometimes that people are saying. I get the point sometimes too, Jeannie. I'm like, oh no, she just did not say that.
Yeah, you're just determined to stick me in rabbit holes, Keith. That's all you're wanting to do.
No, because I kind of find it refreshing, and I kind of think it's nice, because I'm like, you know what? She sticks by her convictions. She's got character. She says what she needs to. She's not hurting anyone's feelings. She's giving her a point, and go with it.
Keith, you're hilarious.
Oh,
Well,
it's my jam.
I just roll with it anymore.
Oh yeah. Other than that, I think that's what's coming up in next month. And I think, hold on, that's April. May, what did we have planned? I don't have my notebook over here.
Yeah, I have something written down upstairs. Can't remember.
Well, I have it in another notebook.
Wait a minute. I thought we were doing a poem for May or April because
Oh,
of
that's
Poetry
right.
Month.
I have totally got them mixed up.
Wednesday is May.
That's right.
The Wednesday
is
thing
May.
is May.
Wednesday is May.
Yes, April 28th.
Wednesday is
I'm
May.
getting ahead of myself. April 28th is Spirits of the Dead.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeannie.
What is it,
Spirits of the Dead is a poem.
See, sometimes you know more than I do when it comes to the schedule.
Yeah, that's sad, but because I can't even tell what day it is most of the time. But all right.
And then May 26th will be Wednesday.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So are you saying that's on Wednesday or what?
No, it'll be
It's
on
a Tuesday that we're going to be talking about Wednesday in the month of May.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know it, Gary. Yes, so April 28th, Spirits of the Dead. May 26th, Wednesday, on that Tuesday. Yes.
Of May.
So then what's happening in June?
We have not planned June or July, so if y'all have thoughts, please let us know. Because there's still several that we have not read of Poe. What, Mike?
So when is the Wednesday series? I'm confused.
That's May the 26th.
May 26th. Sorry about that. I just totally
was
So if
wondering.
I
I'm
want to
like,
suggest a story or something, should I email you, Carmen?
Yeah, just email the 6degreesofpoe@gmail.com. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Alrighty.
Okay.
I go off, I lose my mind like that sometimes too, Carmen. So don't worry about it. I find my day planner
Oh
2
no,
days later and then realize I've missed all my appointments for the month of March.
we
Oh,
love
this is a
when you
good one.
guys suggest stuff, because sometimes Jeannie and I are like, if we don't have any suggestions, we just kind of like go, what do we want to do?
I don't know.
Well, I actually
It's
sit
like
there
the
and think about
vultures
it.
from, from the Jungle Book. I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Now, don't stop that again. Okay, yeah. Because literally, that's what we do sometimes. It's like
We
a
do.
revolving door of vultures. I don't know. And even Jeff, her husband, will chime in. I don't know. It's like, what? Don't grow this group. Thank you. Um, but because remember, tomorrow is April the 1st, and even though it's April Fool's Day, it is the first day of our contest for our fourth annual, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
fourth
Fourth
annual.
annual Poet Like Poe poetry
Oh, I
contest.
thought I'd see that email.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and it goes through May the 15th.
Yeah.
Also tomorrow is the website going live of Fortunate Raven Press
Yes.
.org, which
For-
will be
Fortunate Raven Press.
Fortunate Raven Press.org, which is a blend of where we'll have the books for sale, like our Poe recipe book, and then Carmen's books, and eventually down the road I might have one,
She
or
will.
two maybe.
And
And
she and
we're
I have
actually,
one coming out, hopefully by Poe's birthday next year.
yeah,
awesome.
and we're putting together a 6 Degrees book that's
Oh.
gonna be me and Carmen's mixtures.
Yes.
But it also is going to be the housing of my design business
Oh, cool.
called J.A. Smith Design, where I do book covers, I do bookmarks and stickers and editing services and all that wonderful stuff. So it is a mixture of book services and designs. So fortunateravenpress.org, and you
Laura,
will find it starting tomorrow.
any
Awesome.
particular time in
Congrats.
the afternoon, the morning?
I was going to try to probably about 8 a.m. Central Time in the morning, so about 9 Eastern.
Well,
Um,
I've been up for hours since then.
yeah. So I do have, well, I was going to post a thing on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
but since the paperweight is dead, I can't access my Instagram because I can't get onto it on the computer because I've got two-step verification. Gotta love it. And I
That's
can't
the
remember
thing.
my passwords. So
Oh God.
anyway, so
Also,
yeah,
The horrible thing about this two-step verification is they're already talking about doing away with it and bringing something new
yes.
in that's simpler and easier.
Oh, bullshit. Excuse my
well,
language.
No, I mean, really,
and
I got I get that Google newsletter. What's going on in Google
Yeah.
every week, and I'm like, oh, people are not gonna like y'all.
No.
also on Saturday, we will be putting out a special episode for the third annual Poet Like Poe reading.
Okay.
We did not do one the first year. We started it the second year. The first 2 years we did it live. This year we're just doing video, just as a special episode. And so if you guys have signed up to do your video, please get it to me, and because I will be putting all that together ready to go for Saturday.
Not like we did
Great.
last year with the recording. You just send
Yeah.
it on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've already got most of you guys that have signed up on the Jot forum, so
Yeah.
And of course, I had
So
to resend mine because it was too large and I didn't know how to compress it.
That was my issue, Keith. Like that's why I keep saying that my things are like a minute long, so I can send it
But
because I can't figure it out.
but that was the horrible thing. I couldn't figure out how to do a simple video that I did to compress it, but I do it daily for my job with data files, and it's simple. I just hit a bunch of keys and it's gone. I'm sitting here
well,
going, what am I going to do?
there is
I
a
can't fix it.
free program, I believe it's with Microsoft, called Clip Champ.
I got that.
And it's very
Okay.
easy to use to put your video on. You can record from there too, but it's easier to, like, if you record it on your phone or your laptop and then just upload it into Clipchamp, then you can do any kind of editing. It's really fun. And then you can export it out and it compresses, does all the fun things for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, the word edit video. Yeah, like, you get the raw video, girls.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
yeah, we've got all these tools that are supposed to make things wonderful and great, and now all of a sudden now these tools are being retired because they're doing a lot of damage people were not aware of.
Oh, well, I think that's everything.
Well, thank you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you guys for being here. And I guess on that note,
We
are
Poe
out.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Micah.
Bye.